This is Damian Macy, representing the Friends of the Marshall Public Library on our oral history project. Today is Wednesday, July the 13th of 2016, and I'm at the library and have the privilege of visiting with Vineta Stone. And although she was not born in Marshall, I'm sure she has some interesting stories about where she did grow up and then what brought her to Marshall. So with that, Vineta, I'll turn it over to you, and you can tell us your story.
I was born in Owasso, Michigan. And the only thing I really know about Owasso is their theme song, and it's OWOSSO, where the boys are the squarest and the girls are the fairest of any old town that I know. And at 2, my parents moved to Paris. My grandparents had homesteaded in Oklahoma, and so my mom, who was born in Missouri, and my father, who was born in Tennessee, met in Elkhart, Kansas, out near where Grandma and Grandpa had homesteaded. And when the dust storms came, my parents lost a baby boy who was 9 months old, and they flipped a coin whether to go to Michigan or go to California. My mother won. So that's why I was born in Owasso, Michigan, because some of my dad's family had gone up there to get jobs from Tennessee. During that period of time, jobs were very scarce, and the car industry was really taking off. So they ended up there. A few years later, when I was 2, my mom and dad flipped the coin again. My dad still wanted to go to California, and my mother wanted to go to Illinois. So my mother won, and I ended up in Paris, Illinois.
Did you have any relatives, or was there any family members there?
The Wrights from Paris, George Wright, that family had gone out and homesteaded also, and my 2 uncles had married 2 of their daughters. So when the Wrights came back, it wasn't long until my Uncle Ralph Johnson and his wife Marie and my Uncle Jay Johnson and his wife June moved back to Paris to be close to their parents. And my mom and dad came down, and they had owned a grocery store in Huff, Oklahoma, before they left for Michigan. So they got connected again in Michigan with grocers, and then they ended up owning a grocery store in Paris.
What was the name of that store?
That was Randolph Grocery.
Randolph Grocery.
Yes, on South Central. And eventually some of my relatives owned it, and then my brother owned it for a while. I had one brother who's 10 years older than I am, and so when he was 17, he talked my parents into letting him join the Navy because he didn't want to go to the Army. And he ended up joining. First time he went, he couldn't pass the eye test. So this is my story. He came home and ate carrots continually, and he went back and passed. Now, if the carrots had anything to do with it, I don't know. But he went to the Navy, and then later he and his wife ran the store for a while.
Your brother in the Navy, was that during some of the wartime?
Yes, it was. And he went all over. I don't know where all he went, but it was during the war.
And that would have been World War II? Mm-hmm. Okay. So Paris seems to be kind of a magnet that brought everyone back together.
Yes, our family kept gathering. When Grandma and Grandpa came, that really encouraged, a lot of Viola and Clifford Garrett came. Had their family there.
So did you work in this grocery store some then too?
I ate the candy out of the candy case anytime I wanted it, ruined my teeth. But I did work for my brother. I worked after school and weekends, and I wasn't old enough to have Social Security card at that time, so I think he kind of paid me out of the trash bill.
Okay. So did you go to school then in Paris?
I went to Redmond
Redmond.
first through sixth. I went to Mayo for my junior high, and then I graduated from Paris High School in 1954.
What do you remember about that school? That was in the building that's now abandoned, isn't it?
That's right. They have a new, beautiful school. I remember the May dance that they do, the maypole, each spring. We used to do that. That was special. Playing in the band, and we marched from the high school clear out to the football field. I was so glad I played piccolo.
I was getting ready to ask what you were playing.
Flute and piccolo. I also played in the orchestra with Louis Waterloo, who was an excellent director. And my grandfather, Johnny Johnson, and my grandmother were musical also. My grandfather played fiddle, and my grandma played the piano. And they used to, out in Oklahoma, play for their dances, barn dances.
Do you still do anything with music or plays?
I listen.
Okay.
I have 3 grandchildren right now playing in Marshall Band for the city.
Great. I played in the city band for 35 years
Well,
straight, and then retired a couple of years ago. So time for the next generation. Are there some particular memories you recall about that Redmond school? Was that a country school?
no, it is right there on Central, but it's still standing, but it's not been used for years and years.
What do you remember about those early grade school years?
I remember that my parents owned the grocery store just across the railroad tracks, so I could go home for lunch.
Oh.
I like that. I remember one year, probably about 5th or 6th grade, one of the boys, they were having track meets and stuff, and this boy was pole vaulting, and he missed. And somebody standing by me yelled something at him, and he picked up a cinder, because I used to put the cinders out, for the playground, and threw it, and it hit me just in the eye. And I had a little black mark for years. My souvenir. I enjoyed all my teachers. I remember that Mrs. Babo, or Bibo, can't remember how to pronounce it, did not allow us to chew gum. And
You didn't have a cell phone there either, did you?
no. I've swallowed it a few times. When she said, Vineta, are you chewing gum? No. Addie Hogstrasser was my English teacher in high school, and she was well known for, you came to class, you sat down, you prepared your papers, you did not put your feet on the seat in front of you, they sat straight on the floor, but she was well known for teaching.
But you listened to, didn't you?
Yes, you did, and you didn't talk.
Well, what was your favorite subject?
I really liked accounting. And that's what I had big plans to, get a degree in when I went to college. But my college career was very short, just one semester, and I got married. I married Denny Davidson in December of 1954. He went in the Air Force, and he was going to go 4 years, and I was going to go 4 years to college, and then we were going to get married, And then he was going to go to college, and I was going to, work and help him through, on and on. But you know how that is when you get homesick. So, we were married 42 and a half years before he died in 1997.
So you were in Paris, went to high school there. Did you live in Paris when you were married then?
Oh, no, we immediately went to Lowry Air Force Base. He was in the Air Force.
Okay.
And we've lived from both coasts. Our Air Force career was 21 and a half years, and he retired in December of 1975.
Okay.
And that's when we moved to Marshall.
And what brought you back to Marshall then?
Well, my mom and dad had bought a farm about 10 miles out here on Freedom Church Road. At that point, they were working with a group in Terre Haute, and they wanted to build a camp for my parents were associated with the Churches of Christ. And they'd been renting different campgrounds to have camp. And so Mom and Dad bought this 40 acres, hoping to donate it and build a camp there. But in the meantime, Peabody Coal Company donated about 90 acres just south of Terre Haute on Harlan Road, and much better place. I'm so glad it's there. But then my mom and dad still lived in Paris, and they'd go down and they would put out garden and play to get away from the city. They really enjoyed that. And so they were thinking about selling it, and I said, well, don't sell it till we decide what we're going to do. And Denny wanted to go to Colorado when he got out of the Air Force. And I really, really like Colorado.
Pretty country.
But my mom and dad and his mom and dad were both having their 50th wedding anniversaries right about that time. And I said, I really don't think we ought to go away. I think we need to stay close by to help with our parents. Although we moved back and built the house, and they proceeded, both of them, to go to Florida every winter. And we stayed here in the cold.
Kind of going back a little bit, do you remember having some special, chores to do around the house as a youngster?
My mom was always very particular about her house. So I did. And I can't remember which days, but certain days we did certain things.
Chores.
We vacuumed one day, we dusted, and she taught me that I had to work. Which was, I think, good for me, being an only, because my brother left when I was 7. And, I was the only one there, but
You're it.
she made me be productive. I was in 4-H during that period of time, too, about, 5 or 6 years. And that was good.
Did you have a pet back along those times?
Oh, yes. I had puppies and dogs and cats. My brother, right before, when he was in high school, decided he was going to make money raising rabbits. And so Daddy helped him. They built all the hutches in the barn, and he started having all these rabbits, and then he went in the Navy. So Mom and Dad had to take care of the rabbits. But I would pick out, just about every time, I'd pick out one that I really liked, And I'd come home from school, and the market from Chicago would come down, buy all of them, and they'd all be gone, and my favorite one would be gone. I got crushed a few times that way. Yeah.
Did you have a name for several of them?
Don't remember the first ones, but Denny and I had a dog named Rinky Dink.
Named what?
Rinky Dink.
Rinky Dink.
We just called her Dink. But had her for several years. She was a toy Manchester. And
Do you have a pet now?
I have one now, but Daisy lives in Florida now. I took her down when I went. My son, Keith, has 37 acres down there. He's building an RV air park. And I had just moved in to Marshall from the country because after Bud died, Charles Stone. And you have to have them on chain or leash, and we didn't have a fence. So it just, now Daisy is in Florida. She loves it. Every morning and every evening, Keith has several motorcycles, so he'll take every morning a run around the whole perimeter of his place, and Daisy runs and chases rabbits, armadillos.
Where is that in Florida?
It's Oak Hill, which is south of Daytona Beach,
Okay.
north of Titusville.
Okay. Yeah.
And he has an airplane. This last November, he flew up and picked me up and took me to Florida that way. I'd been driving, but
They get you there a little faster,
a
doesn't
lot
it?
faster.
Do you like the air travel?
I really do. Yeah.
That's a little better than the commercial traffic too, that you have to deal with security and all of the airport mess and everything with luggage.
Actually, I flew back home commercial out of a little town. I can't think of the name of it right this minute. Right near, it's Orlando something, and right direct into Indianapolis. Very, very cheap. It wasn't too bad.
Was it all right?
It wasn't bad.
I guess I kind of diverted back from your current direction you were taking, that you were in the country here in Marshall, and you said you lived in the country and then somewhere you got in town. Can you give a little background?
I married Charles Stone in 2004, October 2004, and in March of 2013, he passed away. And I was living in his house out in the country. And so my kids, that winter, the 13th, was a hard one. And I got, stuck out there. I got snowed in. I ran out of propane. I mean, different things that they thought I ought to be in town. And so Dick Kuhn was in the nursing home, and his daughter Sheila is my daughter-in-law. So I moved into his house, and since then he's passed away. So I'm still living there. The oldest son, Kurt, purchased it, and they live in Texas right now, and so I'm still renting.
That's what I was going to say. You still own the property then? You still own it?
No.
Oh, yeah.
I had a house built in town. I lived 10 miles out.
Okay.
In 1976, Howard Jurgen from Paris built us a house out on just right off Freedom Church Road.
Okay.
And it was the old Louis McDaniel place. And Mom and Dad had a house there that they had, it was on the 40 acres. And they had remodeled, and they put in a bathroom and, kitchen facilities and stuff. And when we tore the old house down after my mom and dad were gone, the original log cabin, we had Fowler Park came and took down the logs and marked them. And they're in one of the cabins over at Fowler Park.
Well, it's great that was recycled to preserve history that way. Yeah. So much better than just tossing them in a ravine or scrapping them.
Yeah. So that's why I moved back into Marshall. I had a house built over on Plant Road after my husband died, because my mother came to live with me. And she was afraid to be out there. It's 10 miles out, but more afraid because I was mowing about 5 acres. And it's up and down, and she was afraid I was going to get hurt. So she kept saying, "I just I'm afraid to live out here. So we found a lot right behind my son, right next to the Staubs. In fact, I bought it from the Staubs. And the Stone boys built my house. So that's I kind of got to know them. And then Charles Stone, his son Ray's daughter, Sarah, married my grandson, Matthew. So we would end up same things.
So Tom and Ron Stone are...
Yeah, they were my stepchildren.
stepchildren. Okay. I thought so, but I really wasn't really sure. We had some good builders there and some good, good designers.
So when I married Bud, I moved out to the farm, and so Matthew and Sarah rented my house. He was 12 years older than me, so I really thought, eventually I'll move back. But you don't move back after 7 years because, there's all kinds of cute things on the walls, little princesses and yeah. So they ended up buying the house from me. So I don't own any property right now.
But the house that you're living in?
No, that's owned by Kurt Kuhn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes that's easier than trying to take care of things and do repairs and everything
Right.
yourself then. Do you have maybe hobbies that you started with way back as a child that you maybe brought up to date?
One of them is I started when I was about 7 or 8 collecting elephants.
Oh, really?
Our neighbors went to Mexico and they came back and brought me an elephant. And that started me. And I don't know, I probably got 400. I've been trying to give them away, but then I still keep getting them. Everybody sees an elephant and they think,
Think of you.
Vineta needs this. Oh, no.
Now, that elephant doesn't have any political significance in it, does it?
Actually does. when I went to register to vote, I said, okay, which one's the elephant? And they said, Republican. I said, okay, I'm going to take that one. I'm not real firm on either one, but
I wasn't trying to be nosy. It just, that when you talked about elephants, that just hit me.
I'm afraid so. My grandpa Johnson was a staunch Democrat, and boy, you didn't say anything bad about Roosevelt or any of those. He was up in arms.
So was that very first elephant that you got, was it metal or ceramic
it
or
was,
plastic?
I can't think of it. It was like marble.
An alabaster?
You could kind of see different things in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you still have that first one?
Yes, I do.
That's it. Have you labeled them anyway of where they came from or what year you
No,
got them?
that's a few, and most of them were given to me, and I can say, oh yeah, they gave me this one, or who gave me that one. But when I went on a mission trip in 2014 to Honduras, the only thing I brought back was an elephant.
Not a live one though.
No. So I can say, well, I brought this from Honduras, or I got this, a certain place. I have some very interesting ones. And I've given away. I gave them to all the great-grandkids.
Neat.
Yeah.
Do you have like a case built where they're all out
Actually,
on
in
display?
Dick's house, while I was out at the farm with Bud, he didn't like all this elephant business. So they all stayed boxed up all those years. And then Dick's house has glass door cabinets, which many of them are in. I mean, that saves dust.
Keeps them a lot cleaner then, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Of course, you wouldn't have any dust, I'm sure, anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Have you done anything like on needlework or sewing or anything?
I used to sew a lot. I still sew some. My machine is a Slanomatic Singer, and it's 58 years old.
That's
And it still works.
That's great. I was interested in your comments about music, and you had played in the band and all. Have you ever picked up that flute again, or piccolo?
I've tried. It didn't come back to me. No, it didn't. So I just listen to other people's music.
Is there a particular type of music that you like?
I like Christian music, gospel music. Like the Gaither Brothers.
Have you ever participated in anything in a church group or anything singing?
When I was in high school, I was in an octet and we went to contests and things. I enjoyed that.
Sure.
I do sing. With the Church of Christ being a cappella, we all sing.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was wondering about.
Yeah. I sing in Singing Sam's.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and our group just yesterday went to St. Mary of the Woods to perform for the Mothers of Providence.
Wonderful.
So, yeah.
That's great. Well, I always think a person needs a hobby, and some of those things kind of keep you going, especially the contact with people.
Right.
Is so important. In your having lived other places and kind of coming back to Marshall, do you have particular memories of early Marshall? Maybe businesses or anything?
I just mainly remember that Paris and Marshall were very competitive back then. No, I really don't.
Really, both of them have lost so much as far as the downtown business nucleus. But Marshall probably has maintained its old character a little more maybe than Paris.
I think Marshall is a wonderful place to live. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I would not want to go live in Paris again.
How about California?
Lived in Victorville, California, on the Mojave Desert.
Ooh.
And that was a very interesting tour. We did seeing San Diego and did the Disney World thing, San Bernardino, had friends there, and relatives in Escondido that we'd go visit. Saw the redwoods, pretty much. That was fun, but I would not want to live there all the time.
And you said you had a son in Florida.
I have 4 sons.
All in Florida?
No,
Oh.
One's in Minnesota,
Okay.
one's in Illinois, one's in Tennessee, and one's in Florida.
Well, scattered out.
Right. It's good traveling.
That Florida environment, does that entice you at all?
Yes, I'm looking forward to going back this winter.
But not to live there.
I do not want to live there permanent.
Yeah. It's great in January, February, and in the cold weather. You mentioned accounting, and I guess being an accountant myself, that kind of piqued my interest. Did you do some accounting work?
Well, I worked for First Financial for 24 years.
Okay, I wasn't sure how long.
Yeah.
In
Marshall.
Mm-hmm.
In Marshall. My first job when we got to Denver was with, let's see, my first one was with General Electric. I was secretary. And then I had my son and laid out a little while. And then I did secretarial work at Colorado School of Mines.
Oh, yeah. Heard of that.
And did that until I got fired. My parents were going from Paris to Florida, so my brother, who lived in Colorado Springs, said, "Hey, come and go with us." So they came by and picked us up, and when I talked to my boss, who was probably about 80 or 85, I think, at the time, he said, "I'm sorry, but you can't take off." And I said, well, this is, a real good opportunity for me to go and be with my parents, see my parents. And so I I thought, I am so important, Yeah, he'll be all right. So I went. When I came home, somebody else was sitting at my desk, and I didn't have a job. But it was okay, because by that time I was expecting my second son.
Those days in accounting and at the bank, do you ever look back on those and say, gee, really, those things have sure changed a lot?
Oh my! When you remember, Margaret Beard was was the bookkeeper, and when I took her position, everything was still being written down. Mm-hmm. Everything was written down, and every night you balanced to the penny. And yeah, it's very different. And then when Terre Haute first bought us out, things really started changing. I think that was back in 95. Anyway, it did. It changed a lot. We filed every check, every day. And all of that quit.
Well, you used to think of a file, it was a metal cabinet with a drawer that pulled out and you put stuff in it. Well, anymore, as a file, it's a bunch of, I guess, electronic information on a disk somewhere. Do you think you'd care to go back to any of that?
No, thank you. I have thoroughly enjoyed my retirement. I actually retired because my daughter-in-law in Minnesota died and left my son with 5 children.
Oh my.
So that's when I retired and went up there and stayed for six or 7 months to help him out.
When did you retire?
2004.
2004?
March of 2004. Mm-hmm.
So you have retired and have not looked back then, it sounds like.
No. I've really been very busy traveling, when you've got your children all scattered out. I've had lots of travel.
Have you done that by car or flying or both?
Both. I flew out to Colorado a couple times. That's where my brother lived. And he died, my goodness, when he was 78. And he's 10 years older than me, and I'm 80, But we used to fly out to Colorado to go skiing. When we first retired from the Air Force here, my son and his wife in Florida loved to ski. And so we would fly out and meet them in Denver and then go up whichever. They had one of those, timeshares, and wherever they got the timeshare, that's where we'd go ski. And so we did a lot of flying.
You like the downhill skiing then?
Yeah, not the moguls. I skied until I had an accident. So then I would take care of the babies while they skied.
I always thought that looked like so much fun, but I'd probably end up wrapped around the pine tree somewhere, so I never did.
Actually, my problem was we'd gone up on the ski lift, and then you got off, and then you skied over to another one to go on up higher. And when we got on the second one, the back end of my ski caught just as we took off and tore the ligaments in my knee. So that was much the end. I went down in a bag behind somebody. I could see nothing. But.
Oh, gee. Well, that would be an experience to end the skiing career, I would think.
That ended it for me.
In your travels and the different places you've lived, has there been anyone or person who's really influenced you that you say, boy, that person maybe even changed my life?
I would say Billy Freeman, and that's a girl, a lady. I had 4 children, we were stationed at Forbes Air Force Base in Topeka, Kansas. And Denny was in SAC and TAC, and that means, they would just go. wherever they were needed. And she was a great example of Christ to me. She helped me take care of the boys. They would have me come in on Saturday night and stay all night, and so she could help me get them ready for church on Sunday. And it was a wonderful experience. But I never had any problem anywhere we went, because the first thing we did was find a church family.
Good point. Did this Billy, was she older than you?
Yeah, she was not a whole problem. It seemed like then she was, but her youngest son was about the same age as my second son. And
Is she still living?
No, she passed away of cancer.
Okay.
And
I was wondering if you may have kept in touch with her over
We
the years.
did, and her husband is still alive. They lived in Louisiana when they got out of the Air Force.
So did they continue to live in different places too, or just Louisiana?
Well, until they retired, and they were both from Bossier City or Monroe. Yeah.
But we've got so many mechanical things and all around us. Is there one thing that you'd say, I just couldn't live without that?
Well, I used to say that about my computer, but I haven't been able to use it for a long time. But that cell phone is really handy. Anytime I want to know anything, I just say, hey, Google.
You've got a smartphone then.
Well, when I got to Florida, my son kept saying, Mother, you need a smartphone. And I said, I don't need a smartphone. He said, yes, you do. And so he took me, and I'm on his plan.
Okay. I've got a phone, but it's a dumb phone. I can call or get a message and text, and that's all I need it for anyway. But the smartphones can do just so many things.
Yeah.
Do you use the computer then? You said something about you had one, or you like.
I do have one, but
not-
since I've been back, I have not got set up with internet. And I can still use it for, writing letters and things. But I'm planning on getting hooked up because Kurt Kuhn and his son Daniel are going to be at my house doing some remodeling in the next couple of weeks. And he works for Bank America out of Dallas. And he needs it, so I've got to get it. But I did, I'm going to be here till November, and I hate to get into a contract like I did last year, paid all that and wasn't using it, so.
Those things are so mobile anymore, it just seems like it's almost mind-boggling of what the cell phone and the computer and all, my gosh.
I love all of our technology, though. So.
Yeah, I think some people get afraid of it somewhat, but it's part of our way of life.
Yeah.
Adjust to it and use it. How about the library?
I love the library. I love their talking books. I don't like to listen to music in the car that much. I want somebody telling me a story. My only problem is, you check them out, and a few minutes they're saying bad words, so I just pull it out and it goes back. It's hard to find good, clean movies or books.
I'm not a big movie goer. I don't know when the last one that went. Even the advertisements for the ones now don't really excite me very much at all. With the travels and all, if you were in, let's say Florida now, and someone says, Marshall, what's that? Where's that? What's that all about? What would you tell them about Marshall and why it might be a good place to visit?
Well, Marshall is a good place to visit, and I always say, it's right near Terre Haute, Indiana. You just go over the Wabash River, right in the middle of the state. 70, because about everybody knows 70. We're right on 70. Marshall has so many things to offer. We have, the state park, Lincoln Trail, and we have Mill Creek, and we have all of these murals, and I am really thrilled with that. And I'm really thrilled that we have the bandstand and during the summer, get to hear the band play.
It's been around since 1875.
Isn't that wonderful?
Wonderful.
It's wonderful.
The comments that you made about Marshall are certainly very, very valid and very, very interesting. Have you actually said that to people when you were maybe in Florida in a meeting?
Yes. And you'll be surprised how many people, oh, my aunt and uncle live, so, I mean, them.
Somewhere around.
So, yeah. So, yep.
Well, Vineta, this has been a real pleasure. I've enjoyed visiting with you. And are there things that maybe we haven't covered that you really wanted to touch
Well,
on?
I really would like to talk about Camp Wabashi.
Sure.
My family is very involved in it. My mother and dad, years ago, were involved in it. And right now, my son Kevin is treasurer, has been for several years, of the board. And my grandson just became president of the board, Jordan. And his brother Matthew also is on the board and is in charge of camping, getting the directors and everything. So our family has stayed very much involved with Camp Wabashi. And
What is the actual address of that, you know?
it's on Harlan Road. We always called it Stuckey Road.
Okay.
It's not very far down Stuckey Road. They have 90 acres there. They can handle about 100 campers. That'd be maxed out. They have, cabins for the girls, 4 cabins for the girls, 3 cabins for the boys. Just built a new shower house for the boys, which is really nice. The nurses' cabin has just been remodeled, and I think the board is starting to get excited about maybe building a new, I don't know. Right now, if it rains, everything has to take place in the lodge, and so I think they're thinking more about having a place for eating and use this lodge that they have, which is made of strand steel, which when strand steel went out, donated a whole lot of it. And the camp has been built by just volunteers, and pretty much, that's how it's run. There's no paid staff except a caretaker, and they don't get paid much.
The people who are going to the camp, is it for like 2 weeks or a month or how long?
No, it's just usually it's a week. It's by age. And there are some ages that can go 2 weeks.
Okay. I didn't know what the length of time was there.
And yeah, but
Does it operate from?
well, in June when school's out, and their last session will be toward the end of July.
Okay.
Yeah, and my grandson Jordan did the 8 to 10-year-olds. Kevin, my son Kevin, did it for 25 years. Directed the 8 to 10-year-olds, and then he turned it over to the boys. So Matthew and Jordan did it together, but this year they're going to do 2 weeks. So Jordan directed the first week, and Matthew came out at night. He works at Rose Hallman. And then this time, the last group, Matthew will be in charge, and Jordan will go to work and come out at night. And their wives and children are all involved. And my son and his wife are involved.
Do they have any sessions for adults, or are they all for children?
Sometimes the camp is used for Camp Bluebird, the cancer survivors.
Okay.
Or patients. And it's used a lot for different church groups. We'll have a retreat. They have 2 sessions of teen retreats, one in the spring and one in the fall. Yep, it's used.
Have they got like any heating facilities in the lodge or
Yeah.
dining room so it can be used even in bad weather?
Yeah, it has all those facilities. The cabins do not have heat or air conditioning. But
Be primitive.
and we don't have a swimming pool, but we have a pond, and so the kids get to canoe with life jackets because it's deep.
You did say 90 some acres? Mm-hmm. That covers quite a bit of territory.
And the back end of it touches Fowler Park.
Oh,
Goes
okay.
into
So it's
Fowler Park.
really out in nature then.
You can go on some good hikes.
Oh, I'll bet. I'll bet.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to comment on?
I'm involved in the Camp Wabashi Associates. I'm also in Marshall Women's Club. I'm in Friendly Neighbor Home Extension. I'm in Red Hatters. I'm in Senior Seekers, which is a Christian group that meets in Terre Haute every Thursday morning. And it's all denominations. And we sing, we have Bible study, and we have lunch. And it's, really
Where does that meet?
at East Side Church Building over on Fruit Ridge.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very good.
Sounds like you've got a few things to take care of your spare time.
I know. That's my first mission trip was and I was 78, which is kind of old to start doing mission trips. And I was asked, well, what do you think you'll be doing? And I said, well, I'll probably be, helping cook or something like that. No, I was building houses. I helped build houses. I could hit a nail after a while. Both kinds. Yeah.
Well, that took some muscle and some energy.
It was a good experience, but it's so sad, and it does. And I'm really thrilled that all the different churches that take kids on mission trips, because it lets them know how privileged we are in America.
I think way back you mentioned going to Honduras.
Yes, that was I've got some pictures of it. So,
How long were you there?
2 weeks.
Okay.
And that was, we took food to the poor section. Oh, you just can't imagine that people even living in those conditions. And, you'd be up on the mountain where we built the houses. There was no electricity. There was no water. And while we were there, our group, the Torch group, had a well dug, hit a beautiful vein of water. And, of course, it was at the bottom of the mountain. So I don't believe even yet they have it up there, but they have, they can get the water to take it to their houses.
And it seemed like those areas of Haiti and Honduras and so many of those places, they had a problem 20 years ago, they had a problem 10 years ago, and they've still got them. It just doesn't seem to improve much. Even in spite of all the church works and volunteers.
My daughter-in-law, Gail Davidson, is now doing full-time mission work in Honduras. And it's right out of Tegucigalpa, or however you say that. I always say Tegus. But she started a medical clinic 9.5 years ago, and they call it Clinic of Hope, or Esperanza. And they have, in that period of time, they've served, probably by now more, 42,328 people, and it's free. And the medicine, and used to, when I'd go down to Florida to my kids' house, there was box after box of medicines, of boxes that the doctors and nurses and all would bring and just drop off at their house because they knew, that she would take it and use it. And I think Honduras has gotten to where you're not allowed now to bring in the medicines. You have to purchase them there. So I don't know how it's all working out. But I don't know. It was a wonderful experience. They have an orphanage there. We're in the group with her clinic and a church building. And so any patient that comes receives a Bible. And
is most of that then funded from the donations of the church and
Mm-hmm.
contributions?
Yeah.
You mentioned being there. Have you been back
No,
to that same spot?
not yet.
I just wondered if you had been back to see what was there today.
Well, this was just 2 years ago. I'm not opposed to taking another trip if I can, keep my health. So I may do that one of these days.
Now, how about your son that has the airplane? Can he fly into a place like that?
He has taken a missionary that has his own plane, but his plane had broken down. He flew him down. Oh gosh. South America.
Oh my, okay.
But I can't remember where. My kids have been doing mission work for years. They've been to Ghana. Gail was actually in Libya, Monrovia, or wherever with the Ebola. Just, 2 years ago?
2 years ago.
And she had to come back and do I don't know, was it a month she was in isolation. Anyway, yes, they're quite involved in that.
Well, it's quite an admirable direction for both you and your children. It sounds like you've been involved in a lot of different things. And it's a delight to have people like you in Marshall, and your nice comments about Marshall when you're, I guess, our advertising when you're out in other places.
Yeah.
It's been a delight having you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And thank you so much, because these oral histories are, just as I said, everyone has a story. It may not mean so much today or tomorrow to you or your family, but somewhere out there, someone's going to say, gee, I didn't know that about Vineta. And thanks again for your time. It's been very, very generous of you.